As an influencer, how do you decide when companies are going to pay you to do brand deals with you? This is an incredibly personal and individual choice for your business. And once you decide the staple or that baseline inside of your business, you do have the ability to be flexible based on which type of company you are working with or what brand deal you're doing. So we are going to decide what is your staple for you, what is your traditional way of doing this, knowing that you can change it if you need to work with different companies based on what you are doing. Now, foundational to all of this is your contract. You should not be doing any brand deal without a contract, a signed, legally binding document. We've talked a lot about that on the legal playlist here on the channel, and you want to be very, very clear that you have a contract. Now, sometimes the contract is coming from you, the influencer, and sometimes the contract is coming from the brand you're working with. You should have a really good contract in place. You can buy just the PDF versions of these from influencer lawyers who just put out those blank documents that you can kind of fill in the things and you're good to go. If you're smart, you're going to have your own lawyer, and they're going to be able to look over these things and provide you with a document to use. But in a lot of cases, you're going to be signing those contracts from the companies. So you need to make sure you have a lawyer on deck to go over those. Don't sign anything without a lawyer, professional lawyer going over it. Even if you're smart, I'm really good at contracts. I know what I'm talking about, and I'm still not a lawyer, and I can't do all of the things. My lawyer will always look over my contracts. Have a lawyer. And so with that in mind, have a contract. A contract is a legally binding document that says that you're going to do the thing that you're going to do, and they're held to what they say they're going to do. So no matter how you decide to be paid, the contract says you will be paid. And it makes it enforceable so that if they're not paying you or not paying you in a timely fashion, you have the ability to get your money. Okay, so with that in mind, let's break down what some of this looks like. Some influencers are going to want to be paid up front. This is something that a contract is kind of in place for, to make sure that you don't have to be abrasive about this. If you want to be paid up front, that's fine. A lot of companies are not going to work with that because they're worried about getting burned on the back end and you not doing the work. I like to be paid up front. I do. And so I will oftentimes say I am paid up front for this. And if a company doesn't like it, then I might consider adjusting it. But I'm very careful and cautious and decisive about when I do that. Now, some entrepreneurs, some influencers will say half up front, half when it's completed before it's posted. You can do something like that as well. All of this, again, will be spelled out in your contract. Now, companies will often want you to do the work first, and then once it's approved and posted, then they're going to pay you. But in most cases, it's not the day that you are posting things. Again, all of this is going to be spelled out in your contract, so if that's what you want to do, have it spelled out in your contract. Most companies are going to want to work with a net 30, net 45, or net 90 contract, which means 30 days after it's posted, then you'll be paid. Or 45 days after it's posted, then you'll be paid. Or 90 days after it's posted, then you'll be paid. And so you have to decide what's going to be the right fit for you. Now again, the contract alleviates a lot of this stress. A lot of us feel like we're going to get burned and we're not going to get paid if we put up the content and if we do the things, we are going to get burned because we have been burned in the past and we see it happen kind of frequently. If you've got that contract in place, it's enforceable legally, which means if they don't do it, you can get your money. You have the opportunity to get your money even if they are not paying it. So you have to be able to decide for yourself what's going to be the best fit. What sounds good to you? Half now, half later, all up front? Are you comfortable with net 30, 45, 90, whatever it happens to be? Now, you also have to take in consideration the rest of the terms because sometimes influencers will go into these conversations and that'll be the end of it. It's a net 45 contract and I'll get paid in 45 days and then they don't get paid in 45 days. What's the retribution there? These all go back to the contract. What do the terms say? As an entrepreneur that's been doing this for a really long time, I actually have clauses in my contract that specifically say if it's not paid after a certain date, they start having to pay interest. So if they don't give it to me on the day they're supposed to, they get a tiny bit of wiggle room and then it starts accruing fees. If you do not pay me for a couple of days, I start getting money, $5, $10, $50. It depends on the size of the brand deal that you're doing. It's going to be incrementally related to that. So if they're not paying me, I am earning money for them not paying me on time. this is often a great incentive to get companies to pay you properly. But you also have to stay in good contact with them. So you have to be in communication with these people to make sure whatever is happening is actually happening. There are lots of horror stories out there, but there are also lots of success stories out there of people being paid on time or not being paid on time. And your contract is going to help you navigate and mitigate all of those potential things that could come your way. So for you as an influencer, what do you feel comfortable with? Have a baseline or a traditional staple inside of your business on what you typically do, and have this in your contract. Then, depending on how you are working with that brand or company, you can adjust it. If you are comfortable being paid half now and half later, and they're not comfortable with that, you have a negotiation. That's what contracts are for. You're there to negotiate them to see what's going to be a good fit for all of you. And that's also why it's incredibly important to have a lawyer on your team when you're doing this, especially with higher level brand deals, to make sure that this is working in your favor and in the company's favor, and everybody is legally protected with this. So when it comes to this, what do you want to do? What do you feel comfortable with? What you feel comfortable with may not be what I feel comfortable with. I have a staple in my business. I prefer to be paid upfront, and I have a contract to back that up. But if people aren't comfortable with that, I'm okay with half upfront and then half before I put things out, or half when I put things out. I really do negotiate this a lot with different brands and different companies. I am not at all offended when somebody says, no, I won't pay you up front. It is a negotiation. I am cautious about how we do this. And as long as there is a good, solid contract in place, I do not mind being paid after the fact. Now, if you are working with different third parties, so a lot of those influencer platforms, those are going to pay you well after the fact, usually several months, and you just have to be aware of that. So if you're doing a deal with a company through a third party influencer app or website, oftentimes you're going to be paid after the fact. Now, the one nice thing about working with those companies is that if the brand isn't paying, that third-party company is going to go after them. They're going to put the pressure on them, and they're going to have to pay you in a timely fashion. And again, you can be earning money if it's a part of the contract if they're not paying on time. But if you're working with those third-party platforms, chances are that's not going to happen for you because the contract is what it is. If you're working direct with brands, you can negotiate the contracts. If you're working with a third-party platform that is helping to aggregate these brand deals, it is what it is. You can't change it. You either accept it or you walk away. And you also have to remember what your walking away point is. If you're in negotiations directly with a brand and they do not want to cooperate with what you want and you do not want to cooperate with what they want, where is the point where you say, okay, we cannot come to a meeting of the minds, we're done, we're not going to do this, we're not going to move forward with this. So have that in mind as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you can be running this. There's a lot of different things to consider. Having a lawyer to go over your contracts and to write your contracts is incredibly helpful. I know not everybody's going to do it, and you're going to try to navigate it on your own, so be mindful of these things. Make sure you understand when you're getting paid, that you have those dates in there, that you have those fees if they're not paying on time, or some type of retribution. Make sure that you have very clear indemnification understanding. Make sure you understand what are the next steps. How do we elevate this if one party does not hold up their end of this contract? Is it to take it to court? Is it to do X, Y, and Z? Have that very clearly spelled out and understand it before you are signing it, before you're offering it to people. What works best for you? What is going to work with your business? And then where is your level of flexibility up and down to work with different brands? And again, I work with different brands on different levels. So bigger brands get a little more leeway, a little more conversation, a little more negotiation. Smaller brands, I tend to adhere closer to what I do because it's a lot easier to work with those bigger brands and make sure I am protected than it is to work with those small brands who could just kind of run away, and then is it worth it to take them to court over something? It's something you have to consider. It's something you have to think about. You have to have your staple and then your level of flexibility from there. Questions on this, go ahead and drop it down below and follow along, because every single day we're dropping brand new videos to help you navigate the world of entrepreneurship, from building your online business to navigating social media, the platform changes and additions and the algorithm shifts, creating your content so that it saves you time and effort but makes you more money, and how to create luxury time in your business so that your business is working for you, not against you, to free up your time so you can live your best life while also running a profitable business. We'll see you in the upcoming episodes.